Learn how to make flatbreads. They're quick, they're simple. All you need is flour, water and a pinch of salt and a non-stick pan. And what's more, they're delicious and very healthy. You'll need some whole wheat or other whole flour. You'll need a mixing bowl, some water, some salt and a mixing spoon. Later on you'll need a spatula and a non-stick pan. So measure out a couple of heaped serving spoons of whole wheat flour into a mixing bowl. Then add a generous pinch of salt. This is optional. Mix the salt into the flour briefly. Now add water at room temperature. Slightly less than equal volume of water to flour. The exact amount of water will depend on the flour you're using and the consistency that you're looking for. It's probably best to add slightly too little water to begin with. You can always add a dash more later. I think this mix is just a little bit on the thick side. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Remember, as the water works in with the flour, the mixture will become thicker in a few minutes. You're really looking to make something a bit like a thick crepe batter. And the beauty of this recipe is you don't need to let it prove. You can go straight to the pan and cook up your delicious flatbreads in minutes. Having heated a medium-sized non-stick pan to a medium temperature, spoon about 2/3 of a serving spoon's worth of batter onto the pan and gently, carefully spread it out into the form of a small pita bread. The thickness should be about 3 to 4 millimeters, no more. Don't worry too much about the shape. The most important thing is to try and spread out the batter to a smooth, flat shape. Notice that as the breads start to cook, you'll see they become dry on the upper surface. You want to wait until they're almost completely dry on the top surface before you turn them over. They're cooking nicely. You can see how they are drying out slowly on the surface. They're about ready to flip over with a spatula in a few seconds. Okay, so let's flip them over with the spatula. Normally they won't stick, and I didn't add any cooking oil to the pan because this is a good non-stick pan. I'm going to turn this one round because it's going to fit better. There we go. So you want to cook them on their second side for about 30 seconds or so. Then you want to flip them back over onto their original side and cook them until they are done, or until they're firm enough to put in a toaster. So as soon as they are cooked enough, they start to become slightly rigid, and I'm just going to finish mine off in the toaster. This is an option, you don't have to do this. But by putting them in the toaster, they don't have to work against gravity, so they gain a slightly lighter, airy texture to them, slightly more like a pita bread. If you have too much batter, you can always keep it covered with a lid at room temperature for half a day, or you can keep it in the fridge overnight. Once these delicious little homemade flatbreads are ready, you can let them cool down a little bit on a drying rack, or you can go straight to eating them. They're great served with butter or ghee, or something like almond puree or tahini, marmalade and jam or honey. The choice is yours. They're good as a savoury or as a sweet bread. Well, all this talk of food, it's making me hungry. I think I'm going to have a little butter and marmalade on mine.
Delicious.
The best kind of flour to use is a whole wheat flour that's made from the whole wheat berry. We're lucky at home to have our own flour mill, so on a weekly basis we make our own whole wheat flour. This makes a slightly rough flour. You can see there's plenty of meal in there, plenty of fibre, and it really helps with controlling the colon and keeping Vata healthy to use a whole wheat flours in your diet. The problem with using more refined flours for this recipe is that the breads tend to be slightly doughy, slightly moist. They're not quite as good. Whereas with this whole wheat flour you get a really nice crunchy, satisfying kind of chewy bread experience.